I'm gonna guess.
There should be a little square that makes it.
Okay. So what I've done is I've started the event so that people can see that it's available and begin to join it. But that doesn't mean that we're going to actually start our introductions or anything for just a few minutes yet.
The center screen with the square with the images on it is quite small, and now it's big. No, now it's one of the now it's one of the small squares. There's you, there's
Yeah, just
all right.
hover your
Okay.
mouse over the middle the vertical lines, and you can drag the vertical lines around. But also, if you just tap your mouse in the center of the tiny square, um,
Mm,
then it should get
mhm.
big.
Okay.
Let's see what I want to do if I can. Hey, Derpeter, let me unmute you just in case you care to use your mic later.
Hello.
Hello. Why are you so quiet?
Might be.
Is your mic on top of your head? Let's see. My question is, how do I get my grid view back? I'm going to have to stop streaming and start again. There we go. All right. You might have to rewatch my stream there. Oh, you are resuppressed. Okay, just a second. All right, very good.
Hello.
Nope, still very quiet.
Still very quiet.
Yeah.
Yeah, I can barely.
All right. I think we are on the hour. So small group. Kentridge, don't worry about how small the group is because typically as people join, more people join.
Not a not a problem.
So it can just be you and me and a couple, 2-3 people until we can till we've been here for probably about 15 minutes, and then slowly but surely people will go like, oh hey, there's something going on, and they'll join. So welcome everyone to Promptcraft Live, our audience driven interactive podcast like event. Tonight's big question, if we have a big question at all, goodness knows where we will wander, but easy to say, hard to answer. When is using Midjourney making art, and when is it just making images? So, for this conversation, we're thrilled to welcome back Kentridge from the Blanton Museum of Art at the University of Texas at Austin. She's here for her second visit, and we're honored to have her. She brings a museum grade eye and a gift for plain talk, which I quite enjoy. So here's how this works, you guys. Basically, Kentridge and I are just going to start a discussion, and we hope we're just going to start
Thank
talking to
you.
each other, and we hope that you'll
Thank you.
jump in by chit chatting in the text or by asking for your microphone or whatever you want to do. You're also welcome to just relax and just listen. So, okay. Kentridge, welcome back. We are genuinely honored to have you. Would you like to introduce yourself? What is your relationship to
Um,
the Blanton Museum of Art? I don't know. You have an intro planned, or I can start asking questions. Go ahead. Hands the microphone to
um,
you.
well, I'm honored to be back, and I'm sort of a beginner myself on creating images using the prompts and so on. I'm still at the beginner stage after a year, which is
Right.
not to blame Clarinet, but I'm um, just I just like to stay in that beginner realm. But the introduction I just wanted to share is that being a docent at the Blanton Museum of Art, which is actually a world-class museum on the grounds of the University of Texas, and the Harry Ransom Research Institute, which is currently going to be opening a major exhibition on the Saturday Night Live. We've
Saturday
got the
Night Live.
SNL, the Lorne Michaels, so I have to be very careful not to get my Leonardo da Vinci's and Lorne Michaels mixed up.
Well, I can
So
see how
but
that would be easy to do, of
that would
course.
be very easy. So the context that I'm used to being, of course, in person, in conversation, and having um, dialogue with the people in front of an artwork. But the dialogue is often the same questions. So of course, in a Midjourney session, I don't know, and we don't know probably who's who and who's an artist and what is everybody's mission. But for the sake of this conversation, I thought I would. I don't know if people can, if Clarinet could suggest people might just type in the text field um, if they are
An artist?
artists or photographers or
Yeah, you
image
guys, let's
makers.
talk Kentridge. Are you an artist, a visual artist? Are you a writer? Are you a musician? Are you a photographer? Are you a dabbler? Do you consider
Yeah,
yourself
or
arts and
are
crafts?
you are you a nurse? It's. I always start
What do you
off
guys
with trying
do?
to. Can
Well,
where would I see this Clarinet?
um, at the well, do you see where it looks like what actor is that lifting
What?
his sunglasses
Oh,
and saying
I
wow?
I see the words writer, teacher, dabbler, internet.
Internet Beagle because Snoopy, like Snoopy from
Okay,
Charlie
I
Brown.
paint, draw, haven't sold much. That's very, very helpful information. Thank you. Doing painting. I work for Midjourney. Studio. Great, great. So, yeah, because I don't want to. I want to say a few obvious things. Assemblage, paint, sculpture, great. So I just because I can see now this is uh, quite a sophisticated group that does do artwork and knows about art. I just want to start off saying a few things you already know. I love this also paint poorly. I'll just have let you guys know that I can't draw a straight line, but I can talk about a straight line for a long time. But definitely can't draw or paint, so I'm in awe of that. I just want to say a couple of obvious things because here in Midjourney, um, making images using the techniques and the products and the tools that Midjourney offers, and wondering if this is art or when does it become art. Basically, this is not a new question. Um, I'm just going to go over some obvious things. You know, since time immemorial, let's say cave paintings, people have made marks on stones, in the sand, in the ancient Spanish Americas, or way before then, 10,000 before the Spanish ever arrived. The Egyptians made marks on tombs, on hieroglyphics. I mean, mankind has always made marks on something. And the point is, those marks had one purpose, which was to produce information, convey information, um, share information, or ask about, does anyone have information? So we in AI are not alone, because art, as we think of the word art with a capital A that we see in museums, was really only came into its own, so to speak, years and years later in the Gothic. And I'm even going to, just for our sake, just talk about European art in the 1400s during the Renaissance, um, and before 1454, which was the printing press and the Gutenberg Bible. Before that, most art was actually useful images to teach or describe to people what they're seeing.
It was
And the people
communication.
that communicate, it wasn't art. Marks, whether it figures, for example, were simply ways to convey information and stories and narratives to people, because most people, and I'm talking about Europe, we're not talking about Asia, Africa, indigenous ancient tribes. Let's just go into the 1400s, because that'll really, bring us to where we are, which is art was not art. Art was bought, paid for, starting in the 1400s and before that, but let's say the 1400s. And because the majority of people could not read, so monks of the church began a system conveying what the Bible stories were to people who couldn't read, using signs and symbols. So um, if you saw, say, a picture of Christ on a cross today, you would know what it was, but the people then would have been just there's all these symbols, and there was a kind of an agreement that in general, if people saw this type of person on this type of in this sort of crucifixion style, it wasn't at first considered art. It was a way, it was a form of writing. It was the iconography of Christian art, and it was paid for by the by the by the Vatican, by the priests and so on, to put to have painted on the walls of even small rural chapels, let's say in Italy, and before the advent of cathedrals and big churches and that kind of thing. So the first thing we have to understand and feel comforted by is that what we see now as called art, these kinds of images in museums, and for example, these we can take comfort in the fact that this was not always art. So the first thing I would say about AI is is your are your AI images designed to communicate something? This is your first order, whether it's commercial for a magazine or a product or a fashion show, whatever it's for. If I think communication is the big C for art, for what later becomes called art. The second thing is really, and this might sound sort of crass, but it's somebody said not sold a lot. Who's making money? Who lands up making money from this? And how does it turn from pure information and education of the illiterate classes of congregants into um, canvases and sculptures and so on in museums and in plazas and that kind of thing. Um, and, and really what we're talking about there is that when this is just a little last part of the history lesson. After the Gutenberg Bible, Johannes Gutenberg, um, there was paper, there was ink, everything was there, but there was no way to fix the words onto paper. And he discovered a way which was to use molten metal, create letters. We knew letters, we had Latin, we had all the attributes of writing and text and images were there, but no way to replicate it, or as we say, scale it up. So he was able to decide that a wine press was very similar to what he needed. It needed someone to turn a flat um, object onto an inked paper and come up with what you see on your screen, which was preset. So this really changes everything. The reason it changes everything is now everybody could read the same thing and see the same thing and understand the same thing. So the church was the main patron of these communication devices in churches. Tens of thousands of images of the Holy Family, the saints, the crucifixion, the Annunciation, all almost remembered, not everything, but almost everything from the 1400s, maybe a little bit before, was what we would call today religious art. But as I said, it wasn't religious art, it was purely utilitarian. So that when you, as a congregant in your rural, on a Sunday morning mass, you come in from your rural farm and you sit on a pew, you have no idea, there's no Bible, there's no writing. You look at the pictures, and your priest tells you when you see a person with a halo, that person is a holy person. If you see a boy holding wearing a goat skin, that's John the Baptist. When you see a man with a cardinal's lion, that's Saint Jerome. It was just useful. You want your AI images to be useful, they still have to contain, in order to be significant and consistent in many images. I would suggest to you have your image. This is if you want to really sell and be commercially successful. If your images contain a communication or a conversation that you want the viewer to understand. And only one viewer, you have a body of work so that many viewers seeing the piece you just made would know that this is what you as an AI artist are saying. There's nothing wrong with just images for images' sake. They are brilliant, fantastical images, as you know. You've probably made them through Midjourney. But the fact is, that those, if you want to call them brilliant AI images that you can buy in a book or however you buy it, nothing wrong with that. But if you want your AI images to become art, then just like hundreds of years ago, you have to morph from image to message from image to conversation to message. So, for example, let's take this so-called golden age of the Spanish Baroque. I say golden age because it wasn't that golden for everybody. I mean, it was the start of the Inquisition and so on. But if we look up Diego Velázquez, Velazquez, Velázquez, Diego Velázquez, and look up Gaspar de Guzman, his portrait of Gaspar de Guzman. There it is. That's it. That one guy in the black. No, further left. No, not that one. Go back. That guy. Yes. So this, let's look at this one. Are we all agreed with that we can see the Comte Duke by Diego Velázquez, a very famous Spanish artist. Now, this era, I'm using this era as an example for you guys, and I'm using, this is an image. It could be an AI image, but in fact, it's oil on canvas. But this image of this Duke is a portrait, and the innovation and the technologies are quite substantial. For example, this guy commissioned Velázquez to make this portrait, and Velázquez was one of the first in this era to decide to do a full-length portrait. Clarinet
Ah, yeah.
had some other portraits that she brought up, which are um, just that one, yes. So that's also Velázquez.
That's actually just a
So
zoom in of that painting. Let's do this one instead.
no,
Or
it's not. It's a different
that's
painting.
that's a different
That's
painting? No
yes, yes.
way.
Now, yes, wait. But that's what I want to talk to you about the message. It's the same as Christian art. If you go back to the other guy, you will see that they look very similar. And what did Velázquez do? Velázquez worked for the King of Spain, Philip IV, and he was able to elevate art by going to the king and say, look at this work that I have done of your Duke and how I have imbued him with a sort of a psychology of his face. But my message, my communication, we don't know who this guy is. But wait, do we? What we know is Velázquez did a full-length figure, which was unusual. Second of all, which you can't see, but if you came to the Blanton, this work is up. He, he everything about this guy is a symbol. The fact that he's writing means that the king allows him to write on his behalf. The fact that he's not wearing a hat, and it's too dark to see, but the hat is on the table, means that he's so powerful and he's so beloved by the king that he is allowed to not wear a hat. If you look at various other signs and symbols in his on his coat, he's wearing the Order of the Golden Fleece. The fact that his cape is flaring out means that he is allowed to wear a sword, however hidden, in the presence of the king. In his belt to the left of his hand is a tiny key showing he has the key to the king's bedchamber. So I could go on and on and on about and then the other thing to show he's devout, you'll see there's a red curtain on the top right. The red curtain is a device that priests use in altarpieces. They they cover the crucifixion or the image of the Holy Family with a curtain until the people come in for mass, and then they pull back the curtain. So Velasquez has said to show this man is a devout Catholic, because this era was all about the Spain's expansion to make the entire world a Catholic world, which is nothing against Catholics or Christians. This is just the era of this time of Isabel and Ferdinand and the various Philips. People looking at this in this particular day would say this is a beautifully constructed image. And the curtain tells me he's devout, and all the symbols and his cloak and the no hat and the glance looking at us, all of this shows me that this is a work of art, not just a plain image which Velasquez could have sketched in 5 minutes.
So
And so,
if his wife said, "I miss you when you're gone, honey. Please commission a picture of yourself," um, and this is the picture that was produced, uh, then it would not be art because it would be just a picture of him to remind his wife, even if it was the same skill.
well, even if it was the same skill, and it would, in its time, be what we think of as a snapshot of himself to send to his wife. However, if the king saw that um, photo, and if you go to Velasquez, if you go to Velasquez and a, a painting called, sorry about the name, a painting called Juan, Juan, de, de,
Hooray.
he, yes, if you go to that, please, we'll deal with this very issue. So this is a Velasquez that's in the this
Well,
is
hold
also a
on.
portrait,
Here
but
we go.
look at this guy if you can get him bigger. So the king sent, this is the difference why when art becomes art. Velasquez did not do this piece to be an art piece. He was in Rome. The king sent him to Rome to do stuff and collect pieces, and he hadn't painted. And Velasquez, during this time period, owned a slave called Juan de Parejo. So he said to Juan, I want you to pose for me because I need to practice my art. Now you see the difference, how simple these brushstrokes are and how unornate and no symbols of anything are on the portrait of his slave. But if you look at the details of the face and the innovations, nobody had done brushstrokes. This is what the Impressionists saw later and were influenced by. But what Velasquez did to make this art is he put a huge amount of dignity into the face. He used the oil paint had been invented then. I don't know why we're jumping around, but he
I'm
used
trying to get
color.
a big one. There we go.
It's okay.
Nice big
This,
one.
yeah, this one's big enough. The point is that originally this was done by Velasquez
Wow.
to practice because he hadn't painted. But even just practicing by doing a portrait of his slave who nobody wanted, he was going to throw it out. But fortunately, um, he kept it and took it back to Madrid for some reason, and he freed his slave, who then himself became a great artist. But you can see that even just doing something on the fly, what made this art is this similar intensity of intention to show the viewer the inner psychology of this man, or if it was his wife, of himself. They are self-portraits. He's got a self-portrait, which is amazing as well. So you can never, if in AI, which is suffering the same thing that Velasquez was suffering, which was art was considered a craft. Velasquez was able to persuade King Philip IV to elevate what he was doing, and Pacheco, his teacher, and some others. He said, I think we should all be members of a guild, a humanities guild. And the king said, no, but this is just pigment and a few brushes. And Velasquez was able, by doing this kind of thing, and the portrait of dukes, and in fact, the portrait of the Pope himself, um,
So
Pope Innocent, he was able,
propaganda. He was able
and
to
that is
turn
the
it
word
into
I knew,
advertising.
100% propaganda. And art historians and curators
Shit.
really use the word propaganda because it was through doing, in a consistent way, intentional works using oil paints in and light and shadow and signs and symbols that people recognize,
Memes
even in
is what they're called
what
today. Memes.
memes.
Hmm.
But the consistency of this message led the king to say, I will, and the Pope, and this was happening in Rome, in Germany, in the Netherlands as well, to elevate what was called a group of craftsmen who happened to use pigments and brushes into, from just workers into members of a guild of humanity,
Professionals
thereby
from
creating
craftsmen to
them
professionals.
right.
Fa-
So they, so I just wanted to indicate to everyone that if anyone could maybe um, talk about their work and indicate in the text if they have a point to make in their AI images over a consistent number of images that would become a body of work that people would say this AI artist should be in a museum. They have a
so
body of work with a
let me
consistent message and consistent skill.
let me
But
let
skill
me
itself is not the thing.
let me take a break for just a second and organize some of the things we're talking about. So
Yeah.
there's two things happening. One, I'm going to go back over the questions that accumulated while Kentridge was talking. Two, Kentridge just gave us a survey. If you happen to be a craftsman or an artist or a writer, we're asking whether your artistic effort, your body of work, has a particular subject, meaning, symbolism. Does it tackle anything? Is it a discussion with a particular theme or topic? So like Lux, yeah, I know you do a lot of visual art. Is it political? Does it have anything to say, or is it just a lot of us produce art for, we'll call it art therapy. It's something that helps ourselves. So that's the survey. So while you guys are answering that question, please each person um, type in whether not whether, but what you're tackling with your artistic endeavors. What are you tackling? The next thing I want to do, Kentridge, is scroll up and convey some of these questions to you. Himbo says, how were you supposed to know all these symbols? This is while you were talking about the red cloak and the hat's off and the sword is under the cloak and the da da da. And he's got a key. And how are you supposed to know these symbols? And I suggested that if you live in that era, then they are like memes. Like we can see certain images and we know what they mean because we all share a common culture, and the culture that is saturated with symbols and meaning, and so too was that era saturated in those
Well,
symbols. Is that
well,
correct?
yes. Well, the Vatican there were two sets of rules. Before the printing press, the Vatican had a set of rules of how to show the Holy Family and saints. And I'm going to show you two more images after this to answer this. And then post printing press, when the church, when Luther went around with texts, his 99 theses about the things that he didn't like about the church started to lose congregants. The church had a big meeting called the Council of Trent to discuss a lot of things. But one of the things they came up with was to change the Holy Family from being very regal with gold and crowns and satin and all this type of thing to ordinary moms and dads with the Christ child as a real baby to make the image more attainable. But the signs and symbols were promulgated in hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of little churches throughout the cities and the rural areas, and they were sent to these churches who were told any altarpiece that you make or any image that you make, if you, for example, as I said, if you depict John the Baptist as a boy, he must be wearing goatskin. If you depict the Virgin
Wow.
Mary,
So
she
so it's
must be wearing
dictated.
blue.
That's
Yeah,
amazing.
the signs and symbols were not made up by the artist.
Well, I'm sure there's something like that going on today, which is a whole other conversation. But okay, I'm gonna put a check mark on Himbo's question. And the next question was when I asked, look, um, what if he said, this is just a portrait for you, my wife, because I know you miss me when I'm gone. Does that suddenly rob it of all artistic intent? And you brought up the picture of the slave here, and Derpader said, look, even if it was just a portrait for my wife, would there still not be a message? And my guess is you're going to say there's a difference between a message, I love you, my wife, and a message, capital M, like, from on high, imbued with the symbology of the discipline of the church and that sort of thing. Is that
Well, that
correct?
becomes what's called a self-portrait. And if you think of the self-portrait of, there's a miniature self-portrait of, let's see if I can find, well, there's actually a self-portrait of Velasquez himself. Um, uh, what makes it art is the intention to imbue it with an inner psychology and an inner message, not um, not just a surface message. So you get the. Are you looking for the self-portrait of?
Yeah. Is any of these a self-portrait?
It might be one with a ruffle. I'm not quite sure because they're small. No, no, I wouldn't do that. That maybe that one. I don't know. But anything, the point is, even a self-portrait or a portrait of one's own wife or a portrait of
Yeah, it is.
oneself,
This is it.
if if it has the symbolism of the portrait is in the gaze, the glance, the attributes. If this man, for example, was holding a book, it would say he's a scholar. In this particular case, what this artist is saying is this the Velasquez self-portrait? It's so I've got only a miniature, so I can't really tell you. It's even if you're doing a portrait of 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 an ordinary person, which incidentally only this is why I say AI artists are in the same boat as all artists. The idea of painting someone who wasn't a count or a holy figure or a king or an emperor or a warrior, a general, that came much later in the 17th, 18th century. Up until now, what was art was really who would pay and who would pay for what image and for what purpose. So if you're doing your AI for education, for example, in those images, depending what you're teaching, if you're teaching um, about the lynchings in 1925 of Hispanic people, as is little known, little is known about that until recently. We always thought Black people got lynched. So if you had an educational piece about racism in the 1920s, your images would need to, sorry, to show those things. So that would be um, sort of what I call institutional images, which can be beautiful and artistic, but may not be art unless you're like um, Valdez, who did a series of 8 um, Hispanic men without the ropes, but you can tell what they are. So that became art. If you could
So
find Val,
you want me to look that one up?
I think it would be important for this question.
What is what is the name of the art piece?
There you go. I'm trying to find out his first name. Valdez from San Antonio. It's
Valdez
called Strange Fruit.
Strange Fruit?
Mm.
God, I know this one. This is famous.
Vincent Valdez. Yeah, if you could put one those up,
Well, that's not very big, but
but just one of them even is fine. Just one of them is fine.
the
I
are
would
they
do the one. I would do the one in the middle here with there, that one. Yes.
okay? Oh, that is from the
So
Blanton Museum of Art.
right. So let's look what an artist who lives in San Antonio today does. He did a whole series of these, and we notice it is educational, but notice how he offers very little information. Um, he asks the viewer to fill in the blanks, so to speak. But this is what you call art and education combined because it does share a history. But what Valdez did, he did a whole series of these, and he did a series of the Ku Klux Klan, and sort of he's got this body of work with the intention of us learning about this era. So I think communication and intention, whether it's for education or for commercial purposes. What is a commercial purpose? A commercial purpose is you want to persuade someone. It's propaganda, as Clarinet said. You want to persuade someone about something. So whether you want to persuade the king that your portrait of the Duke elevates you from being a worker in a studio to a member of a guild who can have all these largesse of the king and get a lot of money from the king depends on how you use what you have in the time you have it and what you have today. I mean, Valdez could have easily used AI for these images, but he chose to use oil on canvas.
So let me
But again, who is the patron? Who are you selling to? If your purpose is to communicate to a school class or a reader of Vogue um, or some other
a
purpose.
browser of social media.
uh, if you want to make money off this and and have it be considered highly skilled technical AI, that's fine. There's nothing wrong with that. And it's by being highly skilled and having your audience know what you're saying and understand it no matter what field you're in, and having a patron who will buy it. Those are some of the key attributes that, whether it's elitist or not, creates the idea that something is art.
That's interesting. In fact, Damage Case had a question, which was, when did quote unquote art become a benchmark concept? I think that's a historical question. Like, something has to rise to a certain level for people with the right lifted eyebrows to be considered true art.
Well, in a way, it was during this period of time of
The
the
church.
15th century, because when the church lost congregants, they also lost, guess what? Money. So people came in and with knives cut the altar pieces up in all the churches, rolled them up, and sold these pieces as things you can frame and put on your wall. Suddenly, they weren't, but to show you're devout. There's still a message. By buying this picture of Archangel Michael, um, killing the demon, or the Annunciation that we cut up from a church, you will that kind of thing. By buying this, which we cut up from a church that was going out of business, you can frame this and put it in your house, and people will say, "That is so beautiful," and you are a devout person.
You know what it reminds me of? It reminds me of people who curate their libraries of books so that the spines show that what they're interested in. So if you invite someone into your house and they walk past your library and they go, "Oh, you read Susan, Sontag, do you? Oh, look at this collection of the New York Times magazines. Oh," and you paint a picture of yourself through the spines of your books, like that sort of thing. Is that the sort of thing you mean? Like,
Yes.
okay,
Uh,
okay.
it became right. So it moved from the patronage of the church to the patronage of the noble class. And when the noble class also went bankrupt due to tariffs,
Yeah.
not to get political, and various things, then the Americans, Berenson and Stieglitz um, and in fact, Archer M. Huntington, who these works that Claire just showed you, Velasquez collected these works and brought them to the United States, to the Hispanic Library and Museum of New York in the 1900s. Um, by collecting these works, framing these works, and hanging them on walls, they move from sort of a working document, a utilitarian object, to an object that is not really needed at all, but is so beautiful and so um, interesting and so emotional that you want to collect it and own it. So a lot of what is art is started off very elitist. Only the very rich had art to buy, and then only the rich who'd lost their money had art to sell to the wealthy Americans. That's how the United States,
Interesting.
if you're watching the Gilded Age, got the Metropolitan Museum of Art during this Gilded Age of the railroad barons and
Oh
so
my
on.
God, there's so many stories, but I'm going to take us back. Oh, first of all, let me just do what's called a bumper and say, if you're joining us just now, welcome to Promptcraft Live, Midjourney's podcast-like event. We're normally on Thursdays, but this evening we had an opportunity to sit down with Kentridge, and we are so honored to have her back. You never know what's going to happen on Promptcraft Live. Sometimes it's tutorials, sometimes it's art history. So we're talking about AI slop versus art, I suppose, in a sense. So post your thoughts and questions in chat anytime. I am going to take us back now, Kentridge, to that survey that you asked a few minutes ago. You asked all of the artists and craftsmen and so on who are on the call right now to talk about what their art represents or what it tackles or what it discusses, or if it does. And our first answer is from Thrangulan, who says, Kentridge, I have two distinct series I've been cultivating. One is Monster Mommies, Hot Monster Ladies, and the other is Goth Girls Bathing in Blood. And then Thrangulan admits it's not high art. That's a joke, Kentridge.
Yes,
Not not high art.
well, what I would say about sorry, did we freeze?
No. Hello.
Oh, so the topic, there's nothing wrong with that topic. The other key thing is audience. For example, the Museum of Modern Art, MoMA, has, I'm just picturing in the lobby, a huge sort of video wall that morphs into different shapes and clouds and images. I don't know if it's even, if you can even, I think it's this here up on the, yeah, there it is. You've got your finger on it. There. So the the thing about that AI artists can understand is the museums have taken note of art generated by AI artists. And what they're looking at now is more abstract, moving images, mostly moving, although I've only seen moving, but I'm sure there are non-moving images that are identified as AI art. And there's nothing wrong with it because if you go to a museum tomorrow and look at the labels, it says oil on canvas, egg tempera, oil on copper, watercolor. There's nothing wrong with identifying your work as AI. There is something that's not going to work if your mummies and your Gothic girls are, are are beamed or shown to someone like me, who is a Rotarian and an art historian.
And you can't
You know,
appreciate it. You can't appreciate it. You're not the right audience.
I can say, wow, this is amazing. AI, somebody really understands how to use AI. Um, or a children's book with AI images. I can appreciate it. But the key is the audience. So, for example, the Museum of Modern Art in New York has AI artists now in the museum, and they have identified those artists as having a body of work. And what their body of work in this case happens to be abstract images and so on. And abstraction is an era of art, and it's an again, it's recognizable. It's no accident that Gutenberg made his first book a Bible. Brilliant marketing idea. What did everybody know? Even those who couldn't read, they knew about a Bible. So he did a Bible. He didn't do a textbook of birds or something. So
Farming
MoMA
techniques.
Right, so MoMA is starting to identify AI art as being mainly abstract, moving, transforming. People will sit for hours in front of this wall, um, watching things, but what they're admiring, you can see the people sitting there. I was one of those people. What they're admiring is the patterns and the movement. So AI is finding itself into museums, but the artists doing those AI works have all those attributes I just mentioned. And you'll notice that because it's the Museum of Modern Art, someone who likes modern art is going to walk into that
Right,
museum
right.
and
It's
like. So if someone only likes, say, Christian art of the 1400s, they are not going to like this. So the correct audience is critical, even
okay.
in the finest of art. And I want to give you one other thing to look at before I shut up, Clarinet, if I could,
Aha.
because it's
Okay.
really interesting. if you would just put in, if possible, Luis, Luis, this is my last image, Luis, Luis D. Morales, Morales, and he has got a painting called Holy Family.
Would it be
Which
that
one
one?
is it? Yes, now keep that one. And if I don't know if you can do two at a time, but
Let's
then
see.
put next to that one Leonardo da Vinci's Mona Lisa.
Oh, I see where you're going there.
Yeah.
Okay, I'm gonna get that, and then
I'm trying to make a point again of consistency and recognizability where everyone's in agreement.
then
Can
I'll
you
put
put
this
those side
one
by side? I don't know.
there. So now they're side by side in your chat there, one after the other.
Okay, I can't see it side by side for some reason, but
Well,
it's
one on
okay.
top of the other maybe, but yeah. Okay. So our
So what
audience
I'm
can see them side by side.
All right, so what I'm asking you to look at, there you are.
There.
I'm asking you to look at, you can see compared to that first Count Duke, which was very imposing and Duke-like with all tons of symbols, keys and swords and what have you. Here, the church is saying, let the Council of Trent forms, and the church is saying to Morales and Velasquez and all these guys, we now want to see the Virgin Mary as a sweet mom with with Joseph and an assistant actually at the very top right. Interestingly enough, this is just an aside. There's a horoscope. Astrology used to be a big thing, horoscopes, and Christ himself had a horoscope, but that's an aside. So the innovation here is, well, how is this art? Well, the innovation here is the softness of the application of the paint. But the artists cleverly do the same subject so that people aren't, because they know that their audience and their patron are very similar. So, in order to sell their work to a church or to a nobleman, these artists look around, see what other artists are doing, and say, I will emulate, not plagiarize, but I will emulate the stylistic um, attributes of the different artists. So this is Morales in Spain, this is Leonardo da Vinci in Italy, and yet they're using a very similar look. And this is what I mean about if you if you're an AI artist and as someone said they have a body of work and a theme, if you could keep that theme and beam that theme and those images to the right audience, you will start seeing and also in a way that that audience is it always I don't know what the right word is because I'm in art, but is it always electronic and on a screen? Or as you can see in the art world, people are buying David Hockney works for tens of millions, but they're only getting the screen image. They're not actually getting his work.
They're
But
getting
still,
it's
the three
interesting.
things is communication, consistency, and sort of commercial application. What audience is
Okay.
going to want to own and collect your work?
So let me go through some of the survey answers again. I'll just read through a few of them. Um, Damage Case says, I suppose some of mine does, and he's saying like tackle something or contend with a theme, but it's more a mood or a world view than something that can be verbalized, for example, as an argument. He says, I think of art as a different mode of communication from anything verbal.
Right.
Uh,
So,
d- oh,
I just want to say this Mona Lisa and the Virgin Mary, it's all about mood. This is called fumato, Sfumato. This was completely new technique designed to create a mood of enigmatic gentleness deliberately. with intent. Remember, use the word intention. If
Mm,
that's your intention, is to create mood, make sure that your viewers, your audience, your buyers, that there's something overall in each piece that's identifiable, that it's your work and a mood that you've created, not
okay.
and that I couldn't have created it because only this particular AI artist, could have created that mood. It's their signature theme.
Okay, interesting. Next survey answer was from Derpader, who says, I think the point of AI is that you don't have to specialize on one specific thing or message. If you focused on painting only faces, your horses may look out of place. For me, it's about emotion. There may not be a direct message, but it's coded into the image that you probably can't decipher, or maybe you can. That's part of the fun.
Mood and emotion is an essential component, even in abstract art, where there's just a dot on a canvas. Ellsworth Kelly would say, I just did the square on a white, black square on a white canvas, but that black square resonates with the viewer, even though, so mood, there's mood, emotion, it doesn't have to be figurative. It can be symbolic, but one thing the survey answers have actually confirmed is that there is something. Here's an Ellsworth Kelly. It's it's not anything, but there's a mood. There's Ellsworth Kelly himself says, I'm not painting anything. I'm just painting a color that I hope will resonate with someone viewing this without me there needing to explain it. There's nothing to explain it, just the mood,
We do have
just
a
the emotion.
question coming in from a side channel here. What about when you said Christ has a what did you say, an astrology? Uh
Oh, in that one painting, there's
yeah.
actually it's very hard to see, but I spotted it and I've researched it, and
What's
apparently,
Christ's sun sign?
well, I'm still researching the images. Very faint at this painting is, from the 1500s. So most people, even today at the museum in the training, most people hadn't noticed. 30 people hadn't noticed it. Only the curator and I had noticed it in the top corner. So I'm going to have to. It's called Christ astrology reading, and the interesting thing is, instead of it being thought of as witchcraft or something, the Pope himself allowed it. But
That's
I haven't
cute.
been able to
Okay.
decipher it. If anybody here knows how to use technology to get really, really, really close to it, I'd like to know.
Oh, excellent. Okay. So, next artist answers, this is Lux. She says, the intention, meaning behind her art, shifts often. Sometimes there is more meaning behind a focused body of work. Sometimes it is a translation of something bigger going on for me. I'd say this is more often than not. So there's a personal component, I think she's saying. Sometimes it's more about exploration, experimentation. What do these materials do? What can I do with with what I have? And sometimes it's simply decorative for funsies.
Well, these artists that you've seen here, like this piece here, before this fumato idea and the idea of using light on a face, those were technological innovations. Artists, this is the finished piece. This Luis de Morales may have done 20 of these before he actually did a finished piece, and may have had dozens and dozens of works that he just painted for fun and gave to friends. We don't know. This is what we have. And so this is what we base the discussion on. My point in saying, if an AI artist or an AI image maker wants to to be sort of make a living doing this, then some sort of consistency is is needed. For example, you can get an ancient urn from Greece, and you can get a copy of that ancient urn from Pottery Barn. You see what I'm saying? So
Yeah.
yeah, so if it's there's nothing wrong with exploring, experimenting, and so on, but if you want your work out in the world, in a museum or used in education as examples, then there is no, you have to put in the work. You
So
know, I write poetry. It's mostly about me, I must say, as people know. But you know, I publish my books on Amazon and I submit poems to, but it's all about me. I'm not expecting to be a great Wordsworth or uh, Edward Hurst or any Oscar Wilde because I'm not putting in the work. If I was serious, I would put in the work and I would get a serious uh, use of words and threads of narrative and have themes that are universal that people can relate to. That is if I want to make this my life's work. So there's nothing wrong with me publishing my little books and having a wonderful time writing poetry, but it's not going to get me to some of my family who are highly published writers at the highest levels of publications, but they put in the work. I'm not putting in the work. I'm dabbling. I'm enjoying it. It's good. I know what I'm doing. It's the same with AI. We, I guess the very first thing you have to ask yourself, AI artists, is what is my purpose in doing this? And there's no wrong answer.
okay, so I'm gonna just go down some of the other questions here. So when you talked about communication, consistency, and commercial application, which is not commercial like sell it so much as commercial, meaning it has an audience and the audience can find it and and you know the audience and the audience finds something in your work. Um, when you talk about consistency, you're not talking about uniformity between
No.
images. You're talking about something that makes them identifiably yours, like a signature.
Um, yes, I think you'll see if you look at Leonardo da Vinci's, if you look at Michelangelo's Pieta sculpture, um, and and other works by him, you'll see that it's almost like you can tell it's Michelangelo. If you listen to certain music, you can almost tell that this is Beethoven or this is Tchaikovsky. There is something to do with having a signature um, a signature
Style.
idea.
Yeah.
Yeah. And it's again, it's not repetition. If you go back to Ellsworth Kelly, you'll see he spent his life's work doing grids and squares and color with no figures, no meaning. Um, Look at his work. It's he's he's all about color, color, and the idea of color and its impact on our sensibilities as we look at it over and over again. He died at 91. He never veered from doing essentially the same thing, but in dozens and dozens of different ways. So that's what I mean by repetition, not uniformity and not, but it's somebody used the word exploration. He was exploring color and
Got
he
it.
explored color with stripes and circles and ovals and grids and all sorts of other things. So, but he did have a signature thing. I can tell from 2 miles away if I'm looking at an Ellsworth Kelly, for example.
If you're just joining us, welcome to Promptcraft Live. This is Midjourney's a podcast like event. You never know what's going to happen on Promptcraft Live. Sometimes it's tutorials and how to's and so on, and sometimes it's scholarship and philosophy and academia. And we're here with Kentridge from the Blanton Museum of Art at the University of Texas at Austin, and we're talking about how AI art or AI aided art or art generated with Midjourney basically could begin to participate in what in art with a capital A, which is terribly hard to define in some ways, and perhaps it's sophistry to even try. But there are some excellent points here, which talk about imbuing your Midjourney creations with your own style and with intention, and with the intention to say something, to mean something, to address a theme, to participate in discussion, in a discussion with the world and a discussion with culture and so on.
Well, something closer to home for AI might be photography. So if you look at Ansel Adams' Moon Over Half Dome, as a quick point before we get back to the survey. Ansel
Shoot,
Adams.
Moon Over Half Dome. I remember this one. This is the one. Oh, it is not the one I thought. Okay. Yep.
Right. So for AI people, this is before digital, obviously. So what Ansel Adams says is if you go to this exact spot, which people have done over and over again, if you go to this exact spot, you will not see this, and I'll tell you why. He said it's like a music composition. He said, I set myself up, I might wait hours, but I take a picture, I take dozens of these images, and I got the moon. My moon was always just looked like a dot. So he went and studied the moon and studied the qualities of a moon, came back to this point and took this picture again. But this is not what you'll see, because what he did was he took the negatives, negatives had been invented by then. So he took the negatives to a dark room. I don't know how young you guys are, but there used to be a thing called a dark room
We're
with
old.
chemicals. Okay, and he
We're all pretty much
manipulates.
over 40.
Okay,
Yeah, at least.
well, he manipulated the image with the technology of chemicals and so on, and various ways to do that, and produce this image, which is not the actual image, and not what you would see if you walked and stood on the same spot, which is still there, um, in
I have to.
Yosemite.
Uh, well, you should finish your point, but then I have a
Well,
question.
my point is, he was like an AI of earlier times, because he took a picture which everyone said, oh, well, that's just a snapshot of a cliff, the moon. But he took it to the dark room, like you use Midjourney, and he manipulated the image to get this image, which is hugely emotional and awesome and inspiring, and has has withstood the test of time. And most people don't realize that this was a manipulated image and it's not the actual image you see.
Okay,
But
so
then
I
he
have
has a body of work of Yosemite.
so lots of people think if it's hard to make, it's art. But you're saying if it's hard to make, that might contribute to its artness, but it is not the whole story. And then the next thing I wanted to say is you said if the art has intention, it has meaning, especially meaning to its audience, that it makes its audience stop and feel and think and engage with a culture in some way, or it's political or satire or something that engages with the larger world. Um, uh, there are I gotta ask, and you're gonna have to bear with me, but social media creates, like, let's take Instagram for example. Instagram there might be an image in Instagram that makes you stop scrolling and stare at it. It has great meaning, especially cultural meaning and even pop cultural meaning. It makes you feel something. But no one would ever say that just the thing that made you stop scrolling and check all those boxes is art. But those social media images will check every box you've named. So what is the ineffable thing?
I I think I think actually it does check all the boxes. The only box it doesn't check is it doesn't make its way into the mainstream of where I can walk into a museum and see it.
Yeah, but
But
still
but having said that,
7.1 million
you
people have seen that image, and
yes,
a
that I'm
fraction of
gonna
people
agree
have
with you.
walked into MoMA.
But that's why artists like David Hockney and others are selling the image of their art for tens of millions because they have acknowledged that art today may be on a screen or on a phone and not on a wall.
Aha. So they're
But
catching up.
you have agreed that that Instagram piece that stopped you in your tracks, there was a reason it stopped you in your
It
tracks.
checked all the
That has
boxes you
not gone
talked about.
away.
No.
Yeah, that has not gone away.
But it
Whether
might be
art should be
garbage.
on
It
a
might be. Do you remember when we were prepping for this and I talked about skibbity, what is it
uh,
called? Skibbity toilet?
something toilets, yeah.
Thank you, Skibbity Toilet. So here's Skibbity Toilet. It's actually called brain rot. It has no meaning except the fact that in a world saturated with attention getting meaning drenched symbolism, which is the social media milieu, um, the youths, the young people have developed absolutely vacuous, meaning free surrealism, and it's definitely a response and a thematic response to the culture that they're in. And
Unfortunately, that position's sort of boomerangs back to bite them because the fact that they're doing it to mean that has meaning.
right, no, it does bite. Well, that's but they're 12, what do they know? But what I'm trying to say is there is a that 7.1 million people have seen it, but what fraction of them appreciated it in an artistic way, and what fraction of them just engaged with that picture in a in the
Well,
what the hell is
they
this?
if they stop to look at it and they engaged with it for 5 or 6 seconds, did you know that most studies have shown that most people walk through a museum and stop for between 1 and 3 seconds at a painting?
Oh my god, no, that is not me. I
No,
can't
I know,
believe
but
it.
most people don't do what we've done here. So the point is that I still think that the toilets, whatever they are, they still actually are art. My point is they can be art, they
Yeah.
can be have a purpose, which is to debunk other art, whatever the purpose is. But I'm also trying to address those people in this session who want to make money from AI. And to make
Oh,
money from AI, it has to
I think we've all
influence
given up.
someone to buy it. It
Fair
has to,
enough, fair enough.
that's right.
So people say AI opens the doors. Do you feel AI art is democratizing? Do you feel like AI art like removes gatekeepers and suddenly more people can participate in art because of tools like Midjourney?
Who are you asking?
You.
Oh,
You're
I
you're
think
the
it
guest. You're the guest. Of
democratizes.
course I'm asking you.
Well, no, the point is anyone can go into Michael's and buy a paintbrush and a tube of paint and do anything, you know. So art is democratized, and that's you come back to what elevates somebody's work into a higher level. And that is when you put the work in and you get your work out there. And even today, the AI artists who are doing bodies of work like what we saw in the MoMA lobby, that
Mhm.
artist, that AI artist whose name I've forgotten, has now sold the rights to those images to other museums.
So
Now,
let
will
me
that
ask the question
particular
again.
artist,
Oh,
yeah, it's
what I'm asking
democratized in
again.
the sense of,
Yes,
yeah,
bring it back. Bring it back.
well, what I'm saying is, I think AI art is just as elitist as 15th century art because not everyone has the skills to to embark on a journey, a mid-journey journey to
You
learn how to
mean
do it.
you mean
Not
instead of
everyone has the
computer literacy is the gatekeeper instead of oil
is
painting literacy?
right. Computer literacy, having the actual computer itself, having a smartphone. I mean, there's a lot of money
Having
involved in having the
literacy
tools.
language, being able to to describe, to have an imagination and say things in words. So it's not as democratizing as you think, or at least would you agree? If it's not as democratizing as people claim it is, then is it at least releasing a new and different group of people into the world of art than before?
Absolutely. Just like Ansel Adams revolutionized, well, there were people before him, but let's say he's in our century, so there's a couple of centuries, Ansel Adams revolutionized photography. AI artists will revolutionize, not revolutionize, but expand the idea of art, just like you had these Spanish artists who did the counts and the popes and the Virgin Marys. Then you had people that did peasants and still lifes and flowers, and then you had the people that did landscapes, and then you had the impressionists that said we're going to paint on white, not on brown. Then you had the minimalists who said we're not going to paint anything on the canvas. You know, so AI
Yeah.
is just fit right into the evolution of art. Guys are you are the Ansel Adams of your day. You are pioneers.
Oh, stop. Oh no. Oh, please.
Oh yes.
Uh, well,
You
that's
are, I mean, I'm awestruck and I applaud everyone for, for diving into this aspect of art and transforming the world of art into yet a new era.
yeah. Yeah, and if you can master the algorithm, McCraft, My Adventures, saying mastering the algorithm is now possibly part of the proliferation of art. That's interesting. And
Yeah.
I'd really like to see, like, I'd like to see what the academic world, I mean, how, like, I saw the other day a textbook, an art history textbook, and I'm holding my hands. I'm holding my hands like about 6 inches apart. This book must have been a 30-pound monster. It was. I can't imagine having that textbook in my life. It was a huge textbook, and it's. I'm sure it started with with cuneiform and ended with whatever latest thing is. And I'm so curious what the next chapter is with all of the digital art. Not just I mean, it stops with photography generally, and maybe it has a little special essay on Photoshopish stuff, and then it just peters out because, like, the academic world or the scholarly world just hasn't caught up. They don't know how to. They haven't created the course of art appreciation 101 for today's art, and certainly, I think the speed at which um the aesthetic movements and art and stuff come in and out of fashion and so on. It's just I am so glad I'm not a grad student that has to think about that because it must be tough.
I think I will say that AI as art has entered into university studio classes in fine art, just as I don't know what you call it, iPhone art, iPhone photography, uh, is now there are artists using um, iPhones and Photoshop and other various apps, and they are having major exhibitions in major museums. And it all comes from um, Google Maps and Google Earth and all this, but they've manipulated it like this. They've manipulated it into um, into something different. So I'm just saying that the overall principles of art, which is intention, meaning, some consistency, some technological advances, conversations with yourself and the viewer, purpose. These are principles in literature, poetry, art, um, really
Let
fashion
me ask
design. All of
this.
these are principles that are not to, and they're the principles remain the same, but the application of the principles are going to be different.
Do you think it's do you think it's important? Damage Case just said, so maybe the question of anything being art might be over. Like maybe it's just not a philosophically useful question anymore today. Do you think there's some reason why we should continue to push for some for saying this is art, this is not art? Do you think at some point it 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 becomes academic moot?
I don't think so. In every field, there are people that do things well and people that do things not well. And I think having a standard, and the standard can be for each age, but even for AI, to have a standard of excellence is a useful tool.
Well, let me tell you this little teaser for Thursday. Promptcraft Live continues on Thursday at 10 a.m. Central UTC 6. And I have actually, just for funsies, put together a standard of excellence,
Oh,
which Kentridge doesn't even know about. I will show it to Kentridge at some point. And you know, it's just I just did some research and I put together like the same way you did, Kentridge, with the three things. Like it has to have consistency and communication, and I did the same sort of thing so that like you can look at you can do your best to make an image that you think is that feels like it might pass, and then maybe there's a rubric. Maybe there's a rubric, and the reason why there should be a rubric is so that you could have, like Himbo says, a guild of AI artists who are actually intentionally attempting to be AI artists and not just one-offs and art therapy
well,
and so on.
is there actually an American Association of AI Artists?
No, but that would be spelled which is really, really great. Let's join the
Um,
guild. Ah!
oh, um,
I definitely think we
unfortunately,
should join that.
I, yeah, I have to take my leave, but
I
it
know,
is
I know.
true that in order to get the prestige and the acknowledgement, artists throughout the eras have created guilds and associations and colleges of landscape artists. They've created um, formal bodies where they've discussed these very things amongst themselves and come up with sort of, no, I wouldn't say a mission statement, but sort of some sort of um, rules of engagement that lift the boat for everyone.
Excellent. Well, thank you so much, Kentridge, for your time. I wish we had more time. I think we could probably talk all night. But I know you do have to go here at the top of the half hour. Is that a thing? What do you say? You don't say the
Um,
top of the half hour.
well, the bottom of the half hour, I do want to say to the group that everything I say is, based on a lot of research. But um, if you don't agree or it's controversial or
Then you've
you
done your
think it doesn't
job.
apply, No, good. I just want you to think about it. Agreeing is not a thing. Just just enjoying the conversation, and I like the idea of actually creating through the next Midjourney session some works and images using the prompt craft and so on, and seeing what comes up if you actually add some sort of guardrails with
Yeah,
these kinds
I'm
of
gonna
ideas.
try it. I'm gonna
Right.
try it just for giggles. We're gonna try it on Thursday, and we'll see where it gets us. Most
Fantastic.
of this group will probably be there, so you guys can see how that goes.
All right. Thank
Kentridge,
you,
thank you
everybody.
so much for your time. Uh is there any way we can maybe tempt you to come back next month? Or
I may be traveling, but we can look at a date and time,
okay.
and we can talk about is television art, and we can all
Oh
look at
my. Yeah, because we can
clips of
make
Saturday
video.
Night Live,
Oh my
live
God, Saturday Night
from.
Live.
All
Live
right.
from the Blanton
Uh,
Museum of Art. It's Kentridge. Thank
Well,
you, Kentridge.
I look forward to participating again, and thank you very much for inviting me.
All right. Have a good
Thanks.
night,
Bye.
Kentridge. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay. Wow, that was so energizing. Thanks so much, you guys, for all of that amazing interaction and the questions and the comments. I couldn't convey everything that you typed, but I promised that I saw it all and we all saw everything. And you should see my screen. You can see my screen. I had a whole list of questions that I was going to hit her with, and most of them she covered by accident. So we're okay. I even had like the definition of art pages up, um, and everything, which is hilarious. If you ever want to read the definition of art, I don't know if you're as much of a nerd as I am, but I read this definition of art and I actually LOL'd a few times. It includes such lines as, I was pasting this in before the event started. I'm gonna paste it in again. Um, uh, the definition of art is controversial in contemporary philosophy. Whether art can be defined has also been a matter of controversy. The philosophical usefulness of a definition of art has also been debated. Damage case, that was what you were saying the whole time. That is from a dead serious article. Like that article is like, it's not even trying to roast art. It's just true. So I guess that's where it leaves us. This is Promptcraft Live, so if anyone would like their microphone and has anything to talk about, we can carry on. Or, um, Kentridge did say that Skibbity Toilet can be considered art if considered as art, which is kind of a weirdly circular thing to say, but it's true that you can, if you're a grad student, you could probably defend Skibbity Toilet and Brain Rot as art, because it is obviously a cultural response and it's saying things. And I'm sure if you could put together an article for the Atlantic Monthly, they would print it. Yeah, postmodern neo-Dadaism, something, why not? I think something could be done there, and I think that's what she was acknowledging. But what that made me want to say was, that means that if you're smart enough to connect the dots to the history of art, then you can make art out of anything just by, where's Legal Beagle? Just by making the case. You know what Skibbity Toilet reminds me of? All your base are belong to us. Like, that was the Gen X version of Skibbity Toilet. All your base are belong to us, and it made no sense, and it was ugly, and it didn't mean anything. And there was the song that went with it, and it showed up in every possible way. Wait, Derpeter, let me unmute you again. Oh, it doesn't matter because your mic isn't working. Darn it. What do you mean it means something? Yeah, no, I know. The whole thing I could tell you by heart. I'm ashamed. Or Yata. Do you remember Yata? It's also a translation joke, problem, issue, funny. Yeah, exactly. Ohio! Nippon QQ. Happy go lucky. All of these things were so I think it's just a continuation of a long um established line of brain rot. It's just we didn't know what to call it before. Oh, sure, the hamster dance. What, the girl with the leak? I think her name was Leak Girl. Where she just called the leak a leak spin? Leak spin? Thank you. Right? The hamster dance, the baby. Do you remember the baby doing Ooga Chaka? Like, not to take you back too far. I can hear that gif. Yes, someone set us up the bomb. It might be. I mean, I don't know. But the way she defined art, it makes me think memes, the way we know memes, internet memes, are like somehow have a dotted line to art with a capital A. Right. Interpreter, that's what I'm trying to say. Is that what she described as capital A art? Like this, the king could look at this picture and could tell right away, you know, A, B, C, D, E, and F. I'm like, shit, yeah, we can look at any given meme and immediately connect with cultural meanings throughout. You know, we even have the Know Your Meme website to help us with the whole visual vocabulary of memes. Yeah, Dharmak and Jalad at Tanagra. Completely. That's what she just told us. She told us that art started out as Dharmak at Jalad and Tanagra, and that's memes. And so now I'm suddenly that art is meme-like. I don't know how to say that. Oh, Derpeter just said that. Is that what you just said? Art is mimetic. Oh, yeah. That, what he said. I'm pointing at the screen like an asshole. What that guy said. Meme college with Professor Clarinet. That's right. Anyway, I thought that was very interesting. And I thought to myself, how in the world am I going to make meaningful AI art? I know how to make beautiful art. I know how to make art that makes me feel something because it looks like something from my childhood, you know, or I listened, like in soundscapes, we listen to music and then the art becomes this sort of echo of the music. And then I can meditate on something that's internally of interest to me and then channel that, you know, into the prompt and into the image, and then that image is imbued with meaning and feeling for me because of the connections that I've made to it. But you know, I don't know if I could make, I mean, does it have to be political for it to talk to you guys? You know, I don't know. Damage Case says that's why this art question seems troubling to me. The effort you spend guessing whether other people will find your work to be art might cause you to not actually communicate much of anything other than I hope you like how this looks. Yeah, that's true. Not all art is pretty. Some art is simply just a banana taped to a wall. I'm obsessed with liminal space, says McCraft. And Dreamcore Midjourney art lately, yeah. Damage Case, that's pretty funny. Damage Case says the banana wall art communicates to me the need for the asteroids to stop missing us. Dare I ask, Stu? It becomes art, not set up to be art. Well, yeah, prompt a grant. That's a great question because based on what Kentridge said, it can be set up to be art. I don't think Ansel Adams took pictures just for funsies and then somebody came along and said, "Oh, that's art." I mean, he was doing something, right? Was he? Pretty sure he wanted money. Yeah, maybe. I don't know. I met someone, I think we all met this person at some point. They were a regular for a little while, and what they wanted to do was put existing IP, which is now a no-no, onto wristwatches. They wanted like a Tweety Bird themed wristwatch and a Mario themed wristwatch. And do you remember this guy? That he was like obsessively talking about that, trying to get like a Minions themed wristwatch. And they were put on posters and he sold them as posters. And he said, "My God, I've made so much money selling photorealistic pictures of wristwatches, like Timex looking wristwatches, themed off of ridiculous pop culture stuff." Like, I mean, and Wonderful World of Stuff makes some dollars. I think Wonderful World of Stuff is literally asleep and still connected to Learning Pro. Nice job, Derpader. So what do we want to talk to Kentridge about next? I wonder to myself. Because she seems game. She's 76 years old, by the way. Would you have guessed that? She's 76 years old. Or 70. She might be 77 years old. Anyway. But you could tell because instead of saying type it in the chat, she said type it in that little text box. In the text field. Type it in the text field. Oh, I know that she's not 55. I promise you. I know. I'm also in Austin, Texas area. So too is she. So, Yeah, it is TV art. Consumption via art. Yeah. All right. Well, while we're chit-chatting, I am going to conclude some of these streams. First of all, I am going to say goodbye to, what is this? This is TikTok. We actually did have some questions from TikTok. Good job, TikTok. Couple of people asked questions. Couple of people were watching. It was great to have you. And see you next time on Midjourney's Promptcraft Live. Like and follow or whatever it is people say. Okay, I'm gonna stop the stream. Bye. Okay, so that was TikTok. And then we also have, who do we have here? We have YouTube and Facebook and Twitch. none of whom said anything. Although there were Twitch and Facebook and YouTube people connected on and off all the time. They didn't say anything. Okay, so signing off on that group as well. Goodbye, you guys.